has taken over. Let's go. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast. Steaks, chicks, stacks. You and I are going to make a lot of money. It's Ferrall, coast to coast.
Make sure you get the SportsGrid app on iOS or Android. It's free. You'll love it. You can watch the network on the app. You can listen to the network on the app. It's got the TV side and the radio side. Follow your favorite hosts like Carver High. It's incredible. It's got in-game odds, everything, videos, stories, highlights, you name it. The SportsGrid app, it's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Hey, did you know we're streaming on X every day, 7 days a week on X? Just go to SportsGrid-Live. And you can see us right on X. You can get the Ferrall Coast to Coast and Ferrall on the Bench daily podcasts on Apple and iTunes. You're good to go with the C2C and Ferrall on the Bench podcast Monday through Friday. A programming note, we'll be live from the mothership, the SportsGrid Network Studios, on Thursday and Friday for the opening 2 days of the NCAA tournament. Carver High and I will be there live from 3 to 6 Eastern this Thursday and Friday. Speaking of programming, tonight on SportsGrid TV after this show at 6 p.m. Eastern, it's in-game live, or rather GTD first with the Kevin Walsh from 6 to 8, in-game live 8 to 10 with, of course, Scott Wetzel and Dave Sharapan. And then at 10, it's Sports Rage, 10 to midnight, with Gabe Morency and Cam Stewart live from Toronto and Vancouver. It's Sports Rage, late night, 10 p.m. Eastern. On SportsGrid Radio, it's Carver and Lisi from 8 to 10. SportsGrid TV and SportsGrid Radio taking over the world, and it was easy doing it. We're into the second hour here on a C2C Terrible Towel Tuesday. Good to have you with us from New York City. And we're talking NBA rack at this juncture.
Yeah, let's finish these last couple games from last night. Wild game in Houston. Rockets beat the Sixers 144 to 137 in overtime. Now, what were the Rockets down, Scotty? I think it was 20-plus they were down in this game, and they came roaring back at home to force overtime and then win it. Jabari Smith Jr., 30 points, 5 threes. Jalen Green, 30 points, a career-high 13 times to help them win their seventh in a row. It was Smith in the overtime getting involved. Space City Home Network.
From tying his career-high set just a few weeks ago. Get it in there. Got to get it in somehow. Will take the three. He'll make it. Another one. His fifth. The Rockets now have made 22 triple.
They've won 7 in a row. How about that?
They have won 7 in a row. Now they have the long winning streak with the Warriors and the T-Wolves both losing last night in the Western Conference. For the Sixers, by the way, and they did play with a skeleton crew again, but Quentin Grimes, 46 points, 13 boards. He hit 8 threes. First player in Sixers history with 45-plus, 10-plus boards, and 5-plus threes. Man, that's like another – like Dallas gave him to them for like nothing too. Like, man, Dallas having a rough go right now. Grimes suddenly gets a little burn.
He's just filling it up. Like, he's like, all right, so no one plays here anymore. I'm just gonna chuck it every time I touch it.
He's averaging 32 or something in the last 5 or 6 games for the Sixers. So he's averaging over 30 points a game. And by the way, they finally put the nail in the coffin this season for PG-13. He got some injections on his knee, his abductor. He got lots of injections. So Paul George finished. Yeah, can he go back to doing the podcast now? He said he was going to stop to focus on getting the team into the playoffs.
He can get the show going.
Isn't happening. So
after the PRP injections, he could do some podcasting. Clearly, he's in a heel mode now. Till they trade him.
Pistons smashed the Pelicans 127-81. The 46-point win was the second largest in Pistons history. Now, I know they got smashed. I saw there was one dunk that Zion had last night again. Like, I know they got crushed. He threw it down. One of these dunks he had on the Pistons. So Zion's still playing well, even though his team sucks. And then they're going to be out with Trey Murphy, too. Season-ending torn
labrum in
his right shoulder.
Away from that dismal
Get him
organization.
Get him away from there. He needs to shine, Zion. Get him out of New Orleans. Bulls beat the Jazz. Suns beat the Raptors. Big. Kings beat the Grizzlies. And Portland beat the Wizards with a cover. That was all late last night with all those late night games. All right, East standings for you here. Obviously, Cleveland and Boston are the two teams. They've already clinched spots. They're out ahead. Knicks in 3. Bucks, Pacers, Pistons, all in the safe zone. Atlanta, Orlando, Chicago, Miami. So Miami's dropped to 10th. Chicago's past them. Atlanta's past them. I don't know if they could fall further. I mean, they got 6 games in the loss lead over Toronto and the Nets. But I guess if you lose every single game, it's possible. I guess it's possible if they keep losing every single night.
Well, I mean, it was like they were up 2 or something at the half at the Garden, and then they melt down in the second half and they lose every game. It's almost like they're throwing games. Like they were playing great ball in the first half, and then in the second half they did nothing. Look, they don't matter anyway. None of that is even relevant. Here it is: Cavs, Celtics, Knicks. I think the Bucks and Pacers and Detroit, just even those 6 are, I think, going to be fantastic. You can't write off the Pistons. I think they'll lose in the playoffs because they're inexperienced. But I think that they're going to show up and give someone problems. And then the Pacers can beat anybody. They proved it again last night, right? Like, there's something about that team that you cannot write them off. I'll tell you the team that doesn't impress me at all, and I got to be honest, it's Milwaukee. I mean, look at them. Like, they get whacked whenever they play anybody good, they lose. And the Knicks don't beat good teams. They beat everybody else. So at the end of the day, I still think, believe it or not, it's Cleveland and Boston. And then my outsider's still Indy.
Well, you know what Milwaukee's problem is. They got a Doc problem. Ever since they brought Doc in, that team has completely changed since they brought Doc in. They got a Doc problem there in Milwaukee.
And how about this guy out west, Budenholzer? He was their coach, right? Now look at him. He can't even go a game without getting in a fight with the Slim Reaper.
He's got all kinds of problems. He's got about a month of work left. He's getting shot. He's got no shot. And that's going to be...
Players hate him.
3 coaches in 3 years. And they'll be on 4 coaches in 4 years with the next one that they hire. Monty, Vogel got 1 year. This guy got 1 year.
He needs a Budweiser.
You need a Bud, all right. Lots of Buds. And the Celtics, by the way, they're still the favorites, minus 140 in the Eastern Conference with the Cavs. So those 2 teams there, Cavs and Celtics, as you said, rightfully the favorites moving forward there in the East. But the Cavs have gotten a little closer to them at least. It's not the big gap that it once was.
I would honestly pay money to watch them down the Celtics in the playoffs. I would actually pay to see that. Like, here, let me give you $1,000 just to watch them lose. I hate them so much. I want to see them lose, no matter what, to whoever. If they lose to anyone, that's it. I'm done. I'll be happy with whatever outcome there is in the NBA at the end of the day, the whole thing, the kit and caboodle, the championship, whoever is crowned, as long as it's not them.
Look, everybody wants to see Boston lose unless you're from Boston. Everybody wants to see the Celtics.
Screw
them. It would be great. I will give you, when we come back, the West, which is very tight, up and down. Lots of positioning to be done there over these last couple of weeks.
What's even worse is that we're hearing how the Red Sox are going to win. Now, this is the same thing every year. Is hearing the Raiders are going to win. The Raiders.
Done deal.
Red Sox are automatic. I mean, they're just automatic. In the bag.
In the bag. Not a problem whatsoever. All right, we'll do the West, and then tonight's games. Only 4 of them tonight. But I'll let you know what we have in the NBA.
Who cares with the play-in games? Screw them.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of thoughts.
18.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Yeah, anyway, so Carver High, let's look at the West before I start saying bad things about people.
Yeah, we don't want to get into any of that. As far as the Western Conference goes, the only thing that's certain is that Oklahoma City's going to be the one. They are flying away from everybody in that department. But look at 2 through 5 first. Houston, Denver, Lakers, Memphis. They're all separated by one game in the loss column. So there's a lot of jockeying to go on there. And then look from Golden State. You know, even Golden State, Minnesota Clippers, one game in the loss separates them. Then Sacramento's there. And Dallas, who has been horrible for a while now. I didn't think it was going to happen, but now I do. I think the Suns will pass them into that 10th spot. And I'll even go one further. I think Portland could pass them. They're 3 games back of him in the loss column.
It doesn't matter. This is like talking about North Carolina and you know, Alabama State. Let me tell you what. So here's the deal: the Warriors, who seldom come out to play, they're gonna matter in the playoffs. So are the Lakers and the Thunder. Obviously, I still say Denver is going to be in the mix. As long as they got Joker, Murray, Gordon, Porter on the floor, and even Brody and Brown, they can beat anybody. They can beat anybody. I'm telling you. So I still think it's the Thunder, Nuggets, Lakers, and Dubs. I think someone like Steph Curry, if, you know, I don't know what it'll be, who they'll play, but I still think someone can knock Houston out. To me, they're young and they're really good. They're really exciting, but some veteran team like with LeBron James or Steph Curry or the Joker are going to beat them.
Well, if you go by the odds board, they say there's 4 teams: Thunder, Nuggets, Lakers, Warriors, and then there's a very big gap after that. So they have 6-1 Lakers, 6-1 Nuggets, 7-1 Warriors. And
the outsiders, the T-Wolves, they're legit. And they have everything, but they're the outsider. I would agree with the I just said it. The top 4 that I talked about are the 4, and I had no idea that those were the odds in the Western Conference that you were going to show. All I know is the optics of thinking of the teams that I watch every night and that we bet on and that perform at the highest level. Those are the best teams, without a doubt. I mean, it's not even a question.
And finally here, quickly, I give you this every week, and there's actually a couple changes this week. The Cavs have overtaken the Thunder, the best ATS team in the NBA this year. Cavs now the best ATS team. And the Blazers got into the top 5 now of the best ATS teams this season. And the Sixers are now the worst, as they have fallen below the Suns, the worst ATS team in the NBA.
Yeah, but if you give them like 16.5 like last night, they covered.
They did, with a skeleton crew. They were able to cover that big number last night. So it is possible. It can happen. I think a lot of their ATS losses were like when their good players play. Like with Embiid and Paul George. I think that's where a lot of their damage was done.
Who's Embiid?
On those numbers. Oh, that's right. We haven't seen him. We probably won't see him for a while. All right, 4 games tonight in the NBA. Let's go. The Hawks are in Charlotte against the Hornets. Hawks minus 8.5. 232.5 the total.
I mean, it just has to be they'll screw it up, isn't it? Right? Like the Hornets will cover. It's got to be that the Hawks will screw this up.
It's possible. It is possible, that's for sure. Brooklyn is in Boston against the Celtics. The Celtics now basically do like a line change every night. They bring like a few guys in, and then a few guys get to sit. I saw Jaylen Brown. It's his turn to sit tonight. Not that it matters. Minus 13.5 for the Celtics. 213.5 the total.
Well, I guess I'm a sucker because they lost to him by a bucket at the Barclays. Or was that not? It was at the Barclays the other day. And now they're playing him at the Garden, and it's 13.5. To me, it's too many sticks. Like, what? So tonight they're going to blow them out, but the other night they beat them by 2. They're going to blow them out tonight. Would you bet on them at 14 to win by 14? Or are you going to take the Nets in 13 and a hook in Boston? Because it seems like they give them fits.
It seems like they give them fits, but also it seems like that when a lesser opponent comes into Boston, they don't give the same gusto. Whether you want to look at the Utah game last week, there's a couple of other games that we can look at. They don't seem to be concerned about winning by 25, even though they know they could. So that's why I think some of these big numbers are all right with these bottom feeder teams against the Celtics in Boston. Because I think they're just cruising to the finish and getting into the real playoffs. That's all that they care about right now. They're not caring about blowing teams out.
Yeah, I'll take the 13.5.
Bucks are in Golden State against the Warriors. This is a late night game. It's on NBA TV. We just heard Steve Kerr tell us that he wasn't sure about Steph. He's currently listed as a game time decision. Listening to Kerr, you'd think he's not going to play tonight. Now that is not official yet. And the line kind of Milwaukee minus 2.5 in Golden State with how bad they've been tells me, Scotty, they don't think he's playing. That's a no Steph line. That Milwaukee minus 2.5.
Look, they were going to have a 7-game homestand, and I told you the only team that would give them problems is Denver, and they'll win every other game. So I'm going right back to them tonight. I'll take the 2.5 with the Dubs. I don't care if he plays or not.
And finally, Cavs Clippers late night at the Intuit. Cleveland minus 2.5, 233.5 the total.
I mean, this is brutal because
it's a tough game.
The Cavs never lose. They just never lose. So
short number. Give me the Clippers.
Oh, there it is.
The Clippers tonight. Give me the Clippers.
I'll still take the Cavs.
which is a great place to be. Are you in the locker room? Like, you giving like the Any Given Sunday Inches Al Pacino speech? Are we there yet?
Oh yeah, I think we've been there. We're gonna have a long talk with Rob today about the 99 199 issue from last week. Like, I just don't get how he is still employed. We gotta talk to ownership about that one.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
They're also showing a little bit more propensity to take the pull-up jumper, which I think is important for them. Aiden Holloway's been better. Brant Nelson's staying out of foul trouble. Clifford Murray is attacking the offensive boards and being the defensive threat that they need. If Alabama can defend, and they make a run, and they win the SEC tournament, I think they're the fourth number one seed.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
That is also value to be the best player on the best team. To me, it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. There is no doubt about it.
The Nuggets probably going to finish, second overall in the conference here, and it's not going to get him the MVP. We'll see how it is down the stretch, and I assume this is going to tighten up, but barring a huge drop-off for OKC as a team, not just SGA, you could probably pencil him in for 30 a night.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that rim. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple of 18.5 point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, so, we're talking about the NFL now, and I've been hearing these terrible stories day after day about Aaron Rodgers, the latest of which just came over, and it said that the Steelers are very optimistic about their quarterback situation, and there's a chick reporting that they think they're getting Aaron Rodgers. They feel really good about it, and it makes me want to barf. Like, just hearing that they're optimistic that they have Aaron Rodgers, to me, it's just so phony, this story. It has to be phony. Are you seeing this story? Like, I'm seeing it right now, that they think they're getting him, and it's ridiculous.
Let me take a look at what we've got here. Yeah, I wouldn't put much stock into anything right now with what's going on. So here we go. Worth noting, this Josina Anderson. Steelers feel like they're getting closer. In their mind, that optimism pertained to Aaron Rodgers. Let's see if that sentiment is mutual. Whatever. Like, this is the same story for the last week.
Like,
do you want to play football or not?
Pathetic.
Do you want to play football or not at this point? Like, that's what it comes down to. And I don't know who that was that Cam Hayward was doing that interview with. I forget. I saw a clip of it this morning. He was on some show, some podcast, whatever it was. And the guy was like, hey, what would your sales pitch be to Aaron Rodgers? And Cam Hayward was just like, sales pitch? I'm not giving any sales pitch. Like, you either want to be a Steeler or you don't. Like, that's it. Like, get out of the way. You don't want to be a Steeler? Move aside. We got things to do here. That's basically the gist of what he was saying. And I agree with him. Enough. Like, figure it out.
Listen,
like I said yesterday, when are we getting the white smoke? When's the white smoke? I got a bill in the mail the other day from them, a gigantic bill in the mail from them, and I have no quarterback. I have Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. That's what I got. And then, I've heard already that all day today I heard that Jackson Dart's going, to the Saints at 9, so they can forget about him. So what are they going to be left with? What is it that they're going to draft? Literally it's Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and Dart, and then that's it, right?
There's no one else worth anything.
I don't think there's anyone else worth a first-round pick. Now,
That's
there are
right.
guys later in the draft. I mean, remember we did that story that the Steelers also liked Will Howard, but you're not taking him in the first round. You're not taking Quinn Ewers in the first round. You know, those guys are kind of further down the line when it comes to the draft process.
The Steelers end up with Quinn Ewers. I'm just not even renewing my season tickets. I'm not. I'm done with it.
Oh, you can't give them up.
I can't
get rid of the Steelers.
I'll give them to anyone. My buddy will take them. My buddy will take them. He goes anyway to the games. Why not? Here, you take them. They're so horrible. You pay it and go see them lose.
It really is telling how little these teams think about all these other guys that they're willing to do this. And when these other guys, I mean, like the Russell Wilsons and the Jamesons and all that. Like, you can tell how little, like, the Steelers, Russ was just there last year. Like, it's just, they want nothing to do with him if they're willing to wait around for this guy.
Let me tell you something else they got a problem with there. Like, remember I told you the story? I'm at this game. It's 10 below with the wind chill, and I'm standing in line to get a drink. And I mean to tell you, I stood in line for an hour, and there was like 12 people in front of me, and this chick was so slow making the cocktails that, like, I could have done it asleep faster. And I'm like, can we get a couple? Can they get a couple? Like, got two chicks working this giant stand of people lining up to spend $20 a pop on cocktails, and they can't even make the drinks. I mean, I could have dogs up there making them faster. Like, can we get a few bartenders in there? Like, this stadium, let me tell you something. It is run like an Amtrak station. It is so awful. It's like Penn Station has more action than I can't even get a drink. You stand in line for an hour to get a beer or a popcorn and a cocktail, anything, and it should be against the law. And incidentally, I sent you all kinds of pictures today of stadium food.
Oh, no, we've got a few later.
It's crucial that we get these things organized. The liquor, the food.
We have a couple of them. We got a few of them later on, probably towards the end of the show.
Can we get it organized?
Interesting items. We have some interesting items for sale across ballparks in Major League Baseball.
Awesome.
Which is a great place to be. Are you in the locker room? Like, you giving like the Any Given Sunday inches Al Pacino speech? Are we there yet?
Oh yeah, I think we've been there. We're gonna have a long talk with Rob today about the 99-199 issue from last week. Like, I just don't get how he is still employed. We gotta talk to ownership about that one.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
They're also showing a little bit more propensity to take the pull-up jumper, which I think is important for them. Aiden Holloway's been better. Brant Nelson's staying out of foul trouble. Clifford Murray is attacking the offensive boards and being the defensive threat that they need. If Alabama can defend, and they make a run, and they win the SEC tournament, I think they're the fourth number one seed.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
That is also value to be the best player on the best team. To me, it's Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. There is no doubt about it.
The Nuggets probably going to finish, second overall in the conference here, and it's not going to get him the MVP. We'll see how it is down the stretch, and I assume this is going to tighten up, but barring a huge drop-off for OKC as a team, not just SGA, you could probably pencil him in for 30 a night.
The early line, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that roof. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple of 15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Kaplan is our NFL insider. Ever since the combine, he's wanted to come on different days and more often, which is a plus for us. You can follow him on X at Kaplan NFL. He's here today for a double shot. And we start off with the legend in Philadelphia. Brandon Graham has announced something.
Yeah, so let's talk about Brandon Graham, who announced his retirement after 15 seasons. Scott, and you and I were talking during the break how fans could be brutal on players, right? So Brandon Graham, it got so bad for him his second year, he started blocking fans like crazy on Twitter, blocking media members. Because let's not forget, he was the 13th player taken overall in the 2010 NFL draft. Right after him, Earl Thomas by the Seahawks. Right after Thomas, Jason Pierre-Paul. So naturally, those guys got off to a great start. Brandon Graham did not. And then he suffered a major knee injury. How about this knee injury? He suffered an ACL injury and a torn patella tendon on the same knee at the same time, okay? That seems to be impossible. But our friends at the Sports Meds Bro podcast told us that. And when you look at Graham's career, it did not look good when Chip Kelly took over as the head coach in 2013. Made him a stand-up edge rusher. He took to it a little bit, but he really started taking off when Jim Schwartz came in 2016, bringing in that wide nine where the ends are out here. He took his career to another level, and you know what he did in 2017? He had the strip sack against Tom Brady. He became one of the all-time greats, and it's one of these situations, Scott, you never could see this because he got off to such a tough start. The immaturity, he had to grow up a little bit, and not only did he grow up, he became one of the team leaders. He'll definitely go in their Hall of Fame for the club, in the Eagles Hall of Fame, but he's what we call that one rung below that almost Hall of Fame player. Just a phenomenal football player. And as you know, Scott, guys don't play this well this late. He turns 37 in June, and quite frankly, the way that he played the last 2 years, he clearly could have played, but he did re-tear his triceps, believe it or not, in the Super Bowl, which is crazy. But it's really one of the all-time stories, and I'm gonna relay one more to you, which I think is fascinating. So, I think in 2011, a veteran Eagles player reached out to me to tell me about Graham and how he wasn't really doing well and had to grow the blank up, which means he's got to mature, to say the least, as you know. And it just shows you that after 2 seasons, nobody saw this coming. There were whispers around the club that he was going to be a bust. That's where he was. And to think, Scott, after 15 years, he's become one of the most beloved players in Eagles history is just remarkable to me.
I remember when we were talking about him going into the Super Bowl that he was coming back too early from the surgery on his tricep, and that no one had ever done that in 4 months. And that I said to you, how do you handle a 300-pounder trying to deal with that with a torn tricep? It's impossible. So what happens? He goes out in the game that they win, his second ring. He re-tears the tricep and plays the whole game with a torn tricep. I mean, you got to be a badass.
All right, so, Scott, how about this? So our friend Dr. David Chow told us, look, he didn't think it would happen. A lot of people doubted he could play. And by the way, it was 2.5 months, not 4. It's just now he didn't play a ton of snaps, but here's the thing, Scott. In his snaps, he was phenomenal. It's just one of these things where, and good that he went out on his own terms. Because as you know, Scott, covering this league for decades, you know this, that typically the league tells you you're done. We're not going to sign you. I could tell you that there would be other teams involved if you wanted to come back. It wouldn't just be the Eagles. And it's just what of my career covering 32 teams for 27 years, being close to that team, it's just one that I never saw coming because, again, after 2 or 3 years, you're like, this guy's going to be bust. He doesn't have it. Then to turn it around and take responsibility for his career and to mature, that shows a lot that we have to give guys a chance.
So you talk about winners in free agency, and you start with the Bears and what they did up front offensively to protect Caleb Williams.
Yep, Scott, every year we're always looking for who's that breakout team, right? The Bears, they've underachieved for years. They've never gotten it right at quarterback. You know, really since, I mean, you could talk about Jim McMahon, and really we're talking about having it right for a number of years, and obviously taking Caleb Williams 2 years ago with the first pick overall. They bring in Ben Johnson, arguably the NFL's best play caller. He's now going to be their head coach. And Ben Johnson knew, looking at this football team, they had a bad offensive line. The word around the league was that they were going to be very aggressive in free agency and the draft on their offensive line. So what do? They've completely rebuilt the interior of their offensive line. They traded for Joe Thuney. I know he got handled by the Eagles in the Super Bowl, but folks, he played left tackle. He hasn't played left tackle since high school. Since college. So he played left tackle the final quarter of the season. It didn't work well, but he's now on the final year of his deal. So the Chiefs traded for him. Chiefs traded him to the Bears and got a draft pick for him. So he'll start at guard. They got Jonah Jackson from the Rams. Ben Johnson was with him. Jonah Jackson with the Lions, and then Drew Dolman, the former Falcons center, will be their starting center. So they've completely rebuilt the interior of their offensive line. And now when you really look at it, Scott, they've added a couple defensive players who I like. Adayo Adingbo, who's kind of a funny name, formerly of the Colts. He's a former second rounder. He's really underrated. They're paying him about $15 million a year. Their pass rush was horrific last season, so they add him in there. So, Scott, this could be the team. I'm not – because you and I laughed last season with Matt Eberflus being former potential coach of the year. They got off to that great start, then they had a terrible losing streak. This is actually legit. If Ben Johnson's the coach that the Bears think he is, with this revamped offensive line, with the talent they have at the skill positions, this absolutely could be that breakout team to make the playoffs.
Well, we'll see, won't we? And what about the Commanders?
Yeah, and Scott, when you look at the Washington Commanders, this is a team that knew if they want to compete for a Super Bowl or compete for a playoff spot against those Eagles, they got to rebuild their offensive line. Like, they overachieved last season. They're playing Brandon Coleman, who was either going to be a left tackle or guard for them, I'm told, last season. So they decided to play him at left tackle. He tried his hardest. It wasn't good enough. So they made the crazy trade of giving up 4 picks to get Laramie Tunsil, the Texans left tackle. So now they've got a legit left tackle for a number of years so that they could move now Brandon Coleman, I'm told, most likely, isn't definite, but most likely to guard where he's better off. Now they've strengthened their offensive line in 2 positions. And Scott, when you really look at it, they needed playmakers. They got their offensive line fixed. They got Deebo Samuel, who Adam Peters was with, the Washington Commanders general manager when he was their personnel director. See, Deebo Samuel, Scott, I don't think he's on the downside of his career. He had the problems with Brock Purdy being injured. Their passing game was not what they thought it would be. So they traded Deebo Samuel, who's 29 years old, still can play. Scott, he's a playmaker. Yes, he's not a 9-route runner. He's not a deep threat. He's a run after the catch, get the ball in his hands. He also can play running back, as we know. Cliff Kingsbury, Scott, one of the best play callers and play designers for the National Football League. This is a great match. Remember, last year they had interest in Brandon Ayuk, so we knew they were looking for a receiver. They got one. And defensively, I know people thought this contract was crazy. Javon Kinlaw, a former first-round pick of the 49ers, who was a disappointment there. He's getting, on his contract, $30 million fully guaranteed at signing, one of the best contracts in free agency. He played really well, Scott, last season with the Jets, where he did not play well with the 49ers. He's going to help solidify their defensive line, and they now can compete. And you look at, Scott, they overachieved last season. Let's call it like it is. They didn't have a very good roster last season. They overachieved, and now they are a legitimate contender to be a perennial playoff team, but they still need a little bit more help on defense. But now they know they can compete in the NFC East for sure.
I mean, they look so great one week, and then the next week they get slaughtered in the playoffs. I couldn't believe that, but I think they are legit. Their quarterback's a badass, and they've added pieces that can make them even tougher. I don't think they're going to lose a playoff game like that again this year. I think they'll be in all the games that they play. We'll see how it pans out. When we come back, we'll talk with Adam some more. We're going to break down more free agency. How about the quarterback dominoes that are still falling, and we still have no clue what Aaron Rodgers is going to do?
Which is a great place to be. Are you in the locker room? Like, you giving like the Any Given Sunday inches Al Pacino speech? Are we there yet?
Oh yeah, I think we've been there. We're gonna have a long talk with Rob today about the 99-199 issue from last week. Like, I just don't get how he is still employed. We got to talk to ownership about that one.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
They're also showing a little bit more propensity to take the pull-up jumper, which I think is important for them. Aiden Holloway's been better. Brant Nelson's staying out of foul trouble. Clifford Murray is attacking the offensive boards and being the defensive threat that they need. If Alabama can defend, and they make a run, and they win the SEC tournament, I think they're the fourth number one seed.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
That is also value to be the best player on the best team. To me, it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. There is no doubt about it.
The Nuggets probably going to finish, second overall in the conference here, and it's not going to get him the MVP. We'll see how it is down the stretch, and I assume this is going to tighten up, but barring a huge drop-off for OKC as a team, not just SGA, you could probably pencil him in for 30 a night.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that roof. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple of 15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We're talking to Adam Kaplan, our NFL insider. He just told me my sports channel, Ferrall show, sucked. I just can't even recover from that at this point. So we'll get into the quarterback. It was a great show, wasn't it? I was out of control. I behaved poorly. Yeah, it was a long time ago. I can't believe I'm still doing it. Here we go. The quarterback dominoes. Let's start with Aaron Rodgers, since nobody seems to know what he's doing.
Yeah, and people are speculating, but I could tell you this: the Steelers definitely want him. Scott, look, you and I have talked about this Russell Wilson situation. He's only a fallback option, okay? There are two guys left. It's Aaron Rodgers and everybody else. It's Russell Wilson too. So let's go to your Steelers, right? They feel with their offensive line, which they think this is one of the best offensive lines they've put together in a number of years. You're getting Fatano back, who was their first-round pick last year from his knee injury where he missed the season. He's back. They feel like that. If you could protect the quarterback, and they believe that they can because they had some issues last year. Dan Moore got that huge deal, by the way, with the Titans, $20.5 million out of nowhere. Although I'm told 3 or 4 teams are in it, but they feel like their offensive line is going to be great. They're just missing a quarterback, and if you could protect Aaron Rodgers, speaking of Aaron Rodgers, you could probably win. Now, Aaron Rodgers got a couple things here. First of all, and I'm not covering up for him at all, but he had 2 significant injuries. He had a MCL sprain, I'm told, and a hamstring strain. Part of the season, Scott, those injuries overlapped each other. How could someone at 41 years old be able to move? Okay, he looked terrible for a while. Okay, and by the way, the Jets' offensive line was not very good, but the Steelers clearly believe he's got at least one good year left in him. And what this would do, Scott, if your Steelers got him, not that the draft is about everything, but they wouldn't have to draft a quarterback this year. Or they could, but knowing that guy would not play this year. And we're going to get later in the segment to updated information on the quarterback class. But, Scott, the Steelers believe if they get Aaron Rodgers, they're taking this thing to the next level. Because you saw the way you and I talked about it a lot. Russell, after that great start, Russell Wilson collapsed, and he struggled. And as I reported a couple months ago, Arthur Smith and the coaches wanted to bench him, but they were told they couldn't do it. But yet they've left the door open, I'm told, absolutely to come back if Aaron Rodgers does not sign there. So that's Pittsburgh. The Giants clearly want Aaron Rodgers. There's no question about it. And Russell Wilson's a fallback option. Then you got the Browns, by the way, are in it for Russell Wilson. So you mentioned the dominoes. It's remarkable to me that a 41-and-a-half-year-old quarterback sets the table for these teams. So this is the state, Scott, of the quarterback position. This is how bad it's become. that you're waiting on a 41-and-a-half-year-old quarterback, but it is what it is. Yes, he's going to be Hall of Famer someday.
I mean, it's just insanity, and he's got them all hostage. Like nothing has happened in Cleveland, Minnesota, the Giants, and the Steelers. Now, I have to say, like, if I'm him and I see, how loaded Minnesota is, fair enough. I understand why he would go there. They're loaded with talent and receivers and everything else. And then the Steelers have Pickens and Metcalf and Freiermuth, which is enticing. And,
pretty good.
Let's face facts. The Steelers go to the playoffs. The Steelers win Super Bowls. It's been a while, but they win Super Bowls. And the Vikings don't. And, I mean, he thinks he's going to win one in Minnesota. They're jinxed. I don't care what anybody says. They never win anything. And the Steelers go to the playoffs, and if they had someone like that, and they had a line, and they have those receivers, and they have that defense, they might actually win a playoff game for the first time since 15 and not be such a joke.
So it's funny you mentioned that, getting Rodgers in the playoffs where they haven't won since 2017. The Steelers really feel, I could just tell from talking to people there, that they think they have a really complete football team without the quarterback. Mason Rudolph right now will be the number 2 quarterback. Now, Scott, let's do this. Let's turn our attention to this list. So what if the Steelers don't get Rodgers, right? And there's really and they bring back Wilson. That's not going to stop them from drafting quarterback. Now, you and I have talked about Cam Ward. He's clearly, as I've been telling you for 3 months now, it's not close. He's the number 1 quarterback in this draft. Shedeur Sanders should be the 2nd quarterback.
Right.
But after that, we have not talked about Quinn Ewers. I know people beat him up after last season. He didn't look right. He didn't throw the ball right. Well, he had Scott, injuries, right? If you're a pitcher and you have an oblique injury, you're out 2 months.
You're done.
He had an oblique injury, which bothered him for just about the entire season. He just couldn't throw the ball right. Well, I could tell you from talking to people at the Combine, he threw the ball really well. He's back to normal. He's throwing the ball well. He's a guy you and I are going to be talking more to the lead up to the draft. He's going to go a little bit higher than you think. Jackson Dart of Mississippi, no quarterback. It's kind of like Bo Nix last year at this time, where it all started for Bo Nix at the Senior Bowl. I was there. I saw it. Well, Jackson Dart, I saw it. He did an excellent Senior Bowl week of practices. I hate to say guys rising on draft boards, but he certainly will go no worse in the 2nd round. He could sneak in late in the 1st round. Absolutely could happen. And then here's my top sleeper right now, Tyler Schau, who I saw at the Senior Bowl. Now, people knock him. He turns 26 in late September. Folks, let me just explain it to you. You could play great quarterback. You could be a great quarterback until your late 30s. Rich Gannon was 38 before he had a neck injury. I remember talking to Rich many years ago. Had he not had that neck injury, he might have played into his 40s. So I wouldn't worry about that. Schau turns 26 in September. He's from Louisville. He's got good size. He's got a good arm. He's another guy we're going to talk about more. And Riley Leonard out of Notre Dame, the more coaches I talk to, Scott, watch his tape, the more they like him. So maybe this class, who everyone's just beating up, it's a terrible draft class, worst in the last 20 years, Scott, maybe it's not going to be as bad as people think.
I don't know about Riley Leonard throwing in the NFL, because I thought he was more of a decent thrower and a better runner at Notre Dame.
Yeah, look, he's got a little bit more than you think to him. But, Scott, again, we were talking on with Craig Mish on the Newswire show. Quarterbacks get pushed up, okay? They're going to go a little bit higher than you think, where you shake your head sometimes. I can't believe that guy went in the 1st round. I'll admit it. When Bo Nix went to the Broncos in the 1st round, I knew then that Sean Payton loved him. But most teams I talked to had a late 2nd, early 3rd round grade. And by the way, they made the playoffs with Bo Nix as their quarterback. So we could say all we want about this guy, should have been a late round pick, and then he goes earlier than we thought. Quarterbacks, right, Scott, always go higher than you think.
I think I'm hearing the Darts going in the top 10. The Saints want him.
That's crazy.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that rhythm. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of thoughts.
15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Your boy, famous Jameis, was hanging around Snoopy today, apparently.
Yeah, we were saying yesterday that he was making this visit, and he's there today. So we'll see if anything materializes from that with the Giants. I, of course, stand what I said yesterday. I think that would be the best option for them, but we shall see. We know who's running that team, and anything's possible with those guys. So who knows with the G-Men, Big Blue. Adam, of course, mentioned this to you. This Brandon Graham retired after 15 seasons, 2 Super Bowl wins for the Eagles. God bless and good luck in your future endeavors to Brandon Graham. Offensive tackle Lane Johnson. He reworks his contract, adds $30 million in guarantees. That ain't bad. Not bad to add that kind of money. Good for him in his late 30s to get all that guaranteed cash.
Right? I mean, I remember interviewing him at the Super Bowl in his box where you couldn't hear the speaker. It was great.
Eagles also made another move. They signed former Giants pass rusher Azeez Ojulari to a 1-year, $4 million deal. So Ojulari, like Barkley last year, heads down the turnpike from the Giants to the Eagles. You could pencil him in for like 11 sacks now. He'll have probably like a double-digit sack season, leaving the Giants and going to the Eagles.
Now he's going to be a star with the Eagles.
Going to be a star now. Going to be a star. Steelers did sign former Chiefs safety, won 2 Super Bowls with the Chiefs, Juan Thornhill, to a 1-year deal. Typical Chiefs getting out on somebody before they start going way downhill. Steelers pick them up. Steelers are going to pick them up on the downside. How it always goes.
Wasn't he playing in like Cleveland too? Didn't he play in Cleveland?
Yeah. He's had several stops.
He's shot.
To put it nicely, yes. That's pretty much where we can go with that.
He's finished.
The Bills reworked the contract of Matt Milano. The thing for him now is he takes a $3 million pay cut, but he can now be a free agent after this season. I think he had a couple years left on his deal. They cut some things out.
Why would he want to leave Buffalo? Getting a new stadium?
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much wanting to leave. Look, I think that the Bills have he's a good player, but he's got a problem that a lot of players around the league have. He doesn't play. That's his problem. He never plays. He's missed more games than he's played the last 3 years for the Bills. So as good as
What
he
a
is when he's
shame.
out there, when you're paying him that much money, eventually you got to do something else. So there you go for that. All the NFL. Adam's very convinced, I heard, obviously with all this quarterback movement, all these other things that are going on. And Riley Leonard, let me just say.
Yeah, stop
Riley
with the
Leonard.
Riley Leonard.
He is, go ahead, say it. Horrible. He's horrible. Horrible. I would be
horrible.
Stunned. I would be stunned if
He
Riley
gets
Leonard
drafted
is on
at all.
I'd be stunned if he got drafted at all. I'd be stunned if he was on an NFL roster after training. Everybody gets invited to camp. Very, it's being on the team week one. He ain't be on any team in week one next year. Will he be on some
Riley
practice
Leonard.
squad, man? Who knows? But he is not an NFL quarterback. We watched
No.
enough snaps of Riley Leonard in South Bend to know he's going to be like all these other Irish quarterbacks.
He should have stayed at Duke.
They hang on practice squads for a while, and then eventually the cord gets
in the
cut.
United Football League.
Your boy last year did that. You're the kid they got from Wake Forest, Hartman. So Hartman bounced around on practice squads last year.
What an overrated
Yeah.
hack he was. He
Yeah,
was
and
another
then-
one that they thought was going to be great in South Bend. He was awful.
Another one. He wasn't great. Horrible. Horrible. It's horrible. All right.
Horrible.
We will start the third and final hour with getting back into the college basketball. The first four tonight will give you all the numbers with North Carolina and San Diego State. St. Francis and Alabama State tonight. We've got NIT
We're going to hear from
numbers.
the Dutch oven.
Got the Dutch oven tonight. Yeah, we got Dutch oven here starting off the last hour. So
Can
we will do all
get
that.
an SDSU upset tonight?
Maybe. Possible. Doubt it.
Which is a great place to be. Are you in the locker room? Like you giving like the Any Given Sunday Inches Al Pacino speech? Are we there yet?
Oh yeah, I think we've been there. We're gonna have a long talk with Rob today about the 99-199 issue from last week. Like I just don't get how he is still employed. We got to talk to ownership about that one.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
They're also showing a little bit more propensity to take the pull-up jumper, which I think is important for them. Aiden Holloway's been better. Brant Nelson's staying out of foul trouble. Clifford Laurie is attacking the offensive boards and being the defensive threat that they need. If Alabama can defend, and they make a run, and they win the SEC tournament, I think they're the fourth number one seed.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
That is also value to be the best player on the best team. To me, it's Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. There is no doubt about it.
The Nuggets probably going to finish, second overall in the conference here, and it's not going to get him the MVP. We'll see how it is down the stretch, and I assume this is going to tighten up, but barring a huge drop-off for OKC as a team, not just SGA, you could probably pencil him in for 30 a night.
The early line, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that rim. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
15.5 live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.